What's the difference between the flight deck of a mighty U.S. aircraft carrier and a MAGA rally? Not much in the mind of President Donald Trump. Why Trump's growing politicization of the military could backfire. Follow this channel, Channel TV, for more updates on international news. What's the difference between the flight deck of a mighty U.S. aircraft carrier and a MAGA rally? Not much in the mind of President Donald Trump. The commander-in-chief used a speech on the USS George Washington, moored in Japan Tuesday, to revive 2020 election falsehoods and to campaign for his constitutionally questionable plan to send troops into U.S. cities. Once, such political activity using the military as a backdrop would have provoked shock back home. But Trump has infringed so many customs of the presidency that it came as no surprise. The president recently had service members cheering a deeply partisan speech at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, that troubled many former senior officers. He staged a parade through Washington to mark the Army's 250th anniversary, which coincided with his birthday. He rambled in a speech before top brass flown from around the globe in Virginia last month. The generals and admirals were also treated to an anti-woke screed from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Most notoriously, in his first term, Trump enlisted General Mark Milley to march with him after demonstrators were cleared from outside the White House. The then chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff apologized for being pulled into domestic politics and landed on Trump's forever enemies list. Trump made a spectacular entrance Tuesday before hundreds of sailors and service personnel, descending on a huge elevator with military jets as a backdrop. His speech on the USS George Washington was a classic weave. He claimed to have dreamed of being an admiral and indulged his obsession about the best way to power catapults that carriers use to launch their warplanes into the sky. But he also touched on fiercely political issues in front of nonpartisan officers and enlisted personnel, previewing an expansion of his effort to send troops into U.S. cities in a constitutionally questionable crime and immigration purge. We have cities that are troubled. We can't have cities that are troubled, and we are sending in our National Guard, Trump said. And if we need more than the National Guard, we'll send more than the National Guard because we're going to have safe cities. We're not going to have people killed in our cities. And whether people like that or not, that's what we're doing, the president said. The timing of his threat to use American troops against Americans was jarring. It came 2 days before he's due to meet in South Korea with President Xi Jinping, head of the Chinese Communist Party, which turned its military on its own people to break up the Tiananmen Square protests in 1989. Trump's plans bear no comparison to that historic outrage. But the symbolism of his efforts to use the military to bolster his own strongman image is clear. The military isn't immune from politics, but tries to avoid them.